Ampire.
Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone. Happy Monday. Well. Aren't we the belle of the ball here in Washington, D.C. these days? Well. Everybody likes us. Oh man, we got Lollapalooza coming here in a couple of years. Amazing. I can't wait.
The quote on Washington is making its presence known in the football world is like, we are so back. Like that quote is like, yes, there is a belief now we are real and legit in the league now.
Yeah, it's funny. I thought this stuff was voted on, but I guess in this case, get that deal done, which it's not yet with RFK, but I guess it's steamrolling the right way. It's hard to believe that the NFL didn't have a make good on them very quickly and say, look, we can bring what is a massive tourism event to the town overnight. And they just rubber stamped that immediately, which ought to tell you that the RFK thing's going the right way, because can't imagine they would have just automatically stated we're going to do this in 2027 without, pretty decent assurances that it's going to happen. Albeit, last time I checked, there were only 5 on the record council members that said that they were going to push this through. I did hear a couple of interviews with a couple of council members that were stating how difficult it would be to stop this from happening, let alone from describing why they think it's good for the city, but that it's part of a budget package and that it's not standalone, and therefore you'd have to kind of deny the budget to make this happen. Again, I'm not Kojo Nandi, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know exactly what all the machinations are. I should probably get Eric Flack or someone on to explain it to me. But it sounds like they have what at least the mayor and some of the city council members believe is a very good deal that's for them. They know they have some convincing to do with a few people, as always, and nothing's done without some kind of giveaway to the other council members to make them happy. But the fact that the NFL would just come out a week later and say the draft is coming to DC in 2 years kind of tells you what you need to know about where this is going. So it's all arrow up, boys and girls. It is arrow up around here these days.
No, and when I saw this as well, I knew this was going to come with it. We've heard rumblings of the draft wanting to be here, but it never really got done. And then when was it? Like 2 years ago, they brought out people to see, how it might be handled. And I just remember thinking, guys, every 4 years we host an inauguration on the mall. I don't know what other comparison that other areas have, but I would say that's about in line with what it's going to look like. The scenes are going to look like here. And yeah, this was always, to me, a handshake thing. Get RFK done. We're going to give you this big event and bring in a bunch of money. I think the numbers, I was looking at it last night, the numbers on Detroit were over $200 million was the economic impact of that. That was still, I think the draft keeps growing every year too, because people figure out that it's free. It's just an event, whatever. So I don't know. Would we beat that number of, 200 million and having over 200,000 like Green Bay did? I don't know. But at the same time, I know the scene on the mall is actually going to be the best looking one out of all of them. So, yeah, I'm not surprised they kind of got handed it after the RFK stuff is starting to go through.
So I assume, they said it's going to be on the National Mall. I assume that that's going to be the case. They'll do the backdrop of, I guess, the Washington Monument or the Lincoln Memorial as the backdrop to the whole thing.
They did say the Washington Monument is going to be the main part of it, which makes sense. There's a bunch of spotlights there. You can probably make that, the cool background either way you face. So, yeah, that's what I've heard is at least the reporting that I read this morning was that's going to be the focal point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. So that's going to be cool to have that. If we're going to have some fun, I really do believe someone's draft room needs to be the Smithsonian. Someone's draft room needs to be the Kennedy Center. Someone's draft room needs to be the Lincoln Memorial. Let's do it up, guys. If we're going to do this, let's do this thing up. Let's use the whole city and everywhere. Imagine the shots in the back rooms at the Smithsonian of the Bills with their draft choices in there. It'd be very cool.
I was gonna say you could give each person you could give a museum with an exhibit. So maybe you match it up, you put the Jags in the American History Museum or something like you know what I mean, or the you line it up with whatever your team is. I don't know. That could be pretty cool. There's plenty of room to go around, and those museums aren't open at night. So yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
I saw someone else tweet. He goes, "The best part of that day is the Commanders are going to pick 32nd," and I'm like, "Oh baby, oh, don't tease me. Don't tease me. Things are getting a little too good. Don't tease me yet. We can't get there yet."
I mean, I did kind of think the same thing. We're going to pick late. I would hope we're picking late, and whatever, whenever that is. So I'm kind of with it. I wasn't going to say 32 and go that deep, but yeah, late is what I would say. I say this too. I was thinking about this last night was, this is actually like a pretty easy place to get to for some of the big teams, right? Like, we obviously have Commanders and Ravens driving distance. Philly fans could come down. New York fans could come down.
Yeah, Kincaid will rent all the buses again. Remember, he'll rent all the buses and bring everybody down here.
Yeah, so I was also thinking that too. Like, I know Green Bay had over 200,000 people. That's not the easiest place to get to. So that's what I was thinking as well. Was this is actually going to be I think there's going to be a lot of different fan bases represented in a big way.
Yeah, no doubt. And this is going to be a massive excuse for anybody who's like, I've never been to Washington, D.C. Yep. This is going to be a massive, especially because of where it's going to be held, massive excuse for people to show up here with their kids, probably to do let's go see the draft, then let's go see D.C. and show off the whole thing.
If I'm the Nationals, I'm calling MLB right now. Block us at home that entire week, please. No
kidding.
to get us some revenue. So yeah, I bet you there's going to be some trickle down effect happening.
Yeah, no kidding. They want the Phillies and the Mets that week at home, probably. Yeah. Probably what they want.
That's right, exactly.
Right. So this is very cool, and God, I mean, it's just so telling how much has changed overnight that they would just rubber stamp that immediately. The fact that the city was willing to work with this group, the fact that the federal government was willing to work with this group. It is interesting that the White House wants to make this announcement. This is like the second or third thing that they've interjected themselves into big time sports. They had a preposterous statement from the White House last week saying they got involved in the Shador Sanders controversy. And it was after Donald Trump said something about it that the Cleveland actually took him, which was ridiculous. But the president did go down to Alabama the other day and spoke, and Tommy Tuberville, the former coach, now senator from Alabama, Nick Saban was there too. And they were talking about NIL. So they're pushing the president to put some legislation in place to try to deal with NIL. Here he is trying to take some level of credit for the draft, coming to Washington, D.C. He's trying to interject himself as a sports president now, which is that's unusual too. Obama was on some level. He was a big fan. He was a huge Hoops fan. He was a big White Sox fan. He had put his fandom out there, but he always showed it. He did brackets. Remember, he did a bracket with Andy Katz. That was a big deal that he did that. But he was a sports fan president. We have a president now who's trying to interject himself into legislation that would go around sports right now. I'm going to be very interested to see what he says about this. And I think he's going to try to take credit for bringing the draft here and bringing the Commanders back to the RFK site, whether that's true or not, because this was signed by the Biden administration. This was not signed by him. He's going to take credit for it, but he's stepping into a place where he thinks sports is a way to regain his popularity for sure.
No, I mean, I remember that was actually say whatever you want about this president or the last president, but his first term, I remember it turning to you at some point during those 4 years of being whatever happened to the president that just has allegiances to a certain sports team.
Right.
It was something I missed. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. That's what unites us is sports a little bit. And
yeah,
I remember
Obama showed up, he'd wear the White Sox hat. That was his thing. Yeah.
Obama, I laughed at it and people hated him for it, but he wore the White Sox hat when he threw the first pitch out for the Nationals. I thought that was funny. That's what the president, you pick your team, even though that you're here. That's always the joke about this area in general. And I remember when Biden got elected, I said, well, at least I know Biden's going to be rooting for the Eagles and the Phillies because that's where his allegiance lie. And he did weigh in at those, on those teams occasionally. So yeah, it is interesting. I'm with you that all of a sudden, less than a year into term 2, big sports fan all of a sudden in the White House.
Yeah. He'll be the first to tell you, I think, if he's being honest, that catering to the UFC crowd was a big part of his campaigning. He became very close with Dana White, who has a role in the administration now. He went to a number of major bouts with the UFC. Joe Rogan obviously is involved with the UFC, went on his podcast with him. So they think they have found a way into a younger demographic, mainly young white men. And young Latino men. They think they found a way into that through the UFC. So he's understood the power of sports as a cultural touchstone into our country. And now here he is. Like, I did find it interesting, like this announcement's coming out of the White House. Like, this announcement's coming out of the White House. We know why this is happening. The NFL wanted a deal done for RFK. DC looks like they're getting a deal done for RFK. This is a total make good. You know, like, we realize how much money is being put into this thing, what you guys have to do this, to push this across the finish line. We're going to give you an event that's going to bring hundreds of millions of dollars to the city. How can you turn that down? Like, the amount of tourism that's going to occur over that, week, really, because people are going to show up. It's a 3-day thing now. It ends on a Saturday. No one's going home till Sunday. I mean, it's a massive event. It's Lollapalooza NFL. It's a massive, massive event. It's a make good. And, I think like Tennessee's going to watch this. Buffalo's going to watch this. They're going to want these things too now off of this, and they're probably going to get it. And, the other thing, this is a precursor to big events will come here if this stadium is built. I firmly believe we'll get a Super Bowl. Like, I think that will happen in 2031 or 2032 or whatever it is, shortly after this stadium gets built, as long as it is to specification for them to have a Super Bowl, which would mean a roof, and secondarily, whatever the number of seats they need it to reach. I believe we're going to get that too. I mean, the NFL is into this position of, we will reward you with things that are worth a tremendous amount of money in tourism, et cetera. The whole week being in DC, Super Bowl week, in terms of just having the coverage that occurs in and around the city, the massive amount of coverage that occurs in your town for over a week, it's priceless what it's worth, and the NFL knows that. And so this is make good number one that they're doing here for this.
Yeah, and like I would say this too, they're getting this one out of the way fast, because one of the teams you just mentioned too was Buffalo. Like, the draft has now become a thing of, well, if you can't host a Super Bowl, we'll give you this. Like, there's a reason Green Bay got it, right? It was because
they won't put this in Orchard Park. I don't care how nice that stadium is. No one's we'll have cold weather here, but like it in all likelihood, hopefully it won't be that. There's a certainty it's that up there in February. They can't do that.
Exactly. So like the draft, I've loved that they've kind of said like, hey, we can't give you a Super Bowl, so we'll give you this. I think this is also their way of saying, we're going to give you this draft because we're not going to give it back to you most likely, unless it's another 20 or 30 years down the line or something like that, because the Super Bowl is on the way for you as well. Like, that's where I kind of read it, that it was the first available draft to start scheduling. They get it right away. It also means the Super Bowl is coming 5, 6, 7 years later, whatever that's going to be as well. And I love this too for another kind of reason here, is that the NFL is also backing the city of just going, hey, we see what you're doing here. Yep. We're going to bring you in a nice chunk of money and do with that what you will. But this is you're in our good graces now. And, whatever else comes, we'll think about this. Like, I don't know if that comes with league meetings or whatever, but I think this is the league going to the city and saying, we're going to give you the first big one. The next big one will come down the line here as long as you get the stadium done.
Yeah, and I don't think it hurts that the ownership group is raising the majority of the money to build the RFK Stadium site and do whatever else is in and around it. And obviously it's going to benefit them. But for all of the people who, push back on this type of subsidy shouldn't occur for the NFL or for billionaire owners or et cetera, the Commanders are ponying up, at least according to the deal in the term sheet I saw, the vast majority of it. To me, there was no way around a redevelopment of that site that there wasn't some public money put into it. There's no way around that. Like, how could there not be? No matter what they chose to do at that site, there was going to have to be public money put into it for infrastructure. And, it's above my skis to talk about whether they're getting a good deal or anything like this. But I do know that, there are other areas that don't seem to want to be that open to raising this kind of money. I think it also shows the positioning of our ownership group, which is a modern ownership group. And I think you're going to see more of this. We are essentially a hedge fund is what we are. This is by trade what Josh Harris has done, and a number of his investors. He sees these as a financial vehicle, and he's able to raise money towards this. We're not asking this family to come up with a certain amount of money to make this happen. And I think you're just going to see more and more and more of this. Like, the ball is rolling downhill at what the price point is to buy the franchises, at what the price point is to build these new facilities. You're going to need the Jeff Bezos, Elon Musks of the world to buy these teams. And if they are not interested or do not want to buy them, you're going to have to get investment groups like this. It also means public money and private investment funds from foreign countries. Like this is the direction it's going. Washington has what is a modern ownership group. They're a hedge fund. They could actually raise this kind of money collectively amid all of their investors to do all of these things. Good luck, like in Cincinnati, where they've been owned by the Brown family forever, when they get into an argument with their jurisdiction, which is happening right now, about a new stadium, because Paul Brown Stadium is now, or whatever it's called, is older. I was just there. I was lovely. I loved it. I think they could just, honestly, that's one of those where I'm like, it's situated perfectly. It did not feel modern. It was incredible atmosphere. You guys could just put some money and make this place maybe a little bit more modern and better, but whatever. Everybody wants a new building. Good luck with the same argument that we're having here. Josh Harris is raising all this money to make this happen because that by trade is what he does for a living. The Brown family, that's not what they do. And you'll find these, I think we're at a point now, it's a breaking point for families that aren't of the uber top like percentile of world wealth to own this thing singularly. That's what it feels like to me.
No, I would agree on that. And for Cincinnati, too, by the way, like I saw some of their stuff starting to bubble up now a little bit. I think Goodell should just tell them privately, like they're probably not getting a Super Bowl no matter what they do, which would be.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, again, they'd have to get a new stadium with a roof on it. I mean, like that's the only chance that they have. Right.
Yeah. And to your point, too, here of like what this team is doing to raise the money to do what they're doing here, too. You know, like we talked about it for years and we still talk about it to an extent, but at least there's a direction the Wizards have picked to be bad at this point. But you and I like to talk about how the Wizards don't act like a top 10 team, like a top 10 market team. That how does the team in Washington, D.C., how is it so irrelevant, especially with it's like such a hoops hotbed here? The Commanders, I think, are finally, you know, they finally took a look at themselves and what they were inheriting and go, why are we not more popular? We were this, you know, and I get it. The brand change, whatever, but we still are a Washington-based team. I think the 180 that this team has done in the last 3 years, really, of, you know, changing, getting the franchise quarterback, getting the GM in place, getting the new owner in place, having them come back to the city. It's really remarkable when you step back and look at everything. And I know we've talked about the turnaround, but it's also now getting to the point where they're breaking news like every week on really, really good things. That was never the case ever with this franchise in my lifetime, essentially. And so it's like every week, it's like, what's next? Oh, last week it was the stadium. Oh, this week it's the draft. What's next week? Because like, I don't know, it's all roses here. Everything they do is, you know, incredible at this point compared to what it used to be.
Next week, or 8-9 days is going to be the schedule.
Right. Okay. So
you're going to see how wanted this team is to be seen in the primetime games. Like I'm convinced we're having 5 night games. We're going to have a lot of short weeks, a couple Monday night appearances. I wouldn't be shocked if we're the opener against Philadelphia up there because of the way everybody thinks that like this is going. It's a rematch of the NFC Championship game. Like, so that wouldn't surprise me. I don't think it's off. It doesn't sound like it's going this direction, but I don't think it's out that they're not going internationally. So I still think it's possible they could go to Spain and play the Dolphins. I don't think that's because that hadn't been announced yet. So that's a possibility that could happen. I would be shocked if we're not playing on Thanksgiving again because we didn't do it last year. So that's an annual ratings bonanza to put them on Thanksgiving now against Dallas. I mean, come on. So like everything's really changed around here almost overnight. And to your point too, like, God, how many years did I have to live with? It didn't matter what they did. You know, there was always going to be something. It got to the point by the end of it where I'm like, you guys are just looking for crap now. Like, you don't have to look that hard, but every once in a while you'll find something like the mug and you'll make everything about the mug. And I'm like, that's just perception of a franchise that can't do anything right. And perception becomes reality. And it was, I felt for the players. I felt for Ron in this one way because it was like, there was just nothing they could do. There's like literally nothing they could do that was going to be positive. Then they started losing and then it got worse again. It feels like overnight that everything's just totally shifted, changed. Look at this. The draft is coming here. They're likely to get a new stadium at the spot they wanted to have it at that they couldn't get the rights to even negotiate for 30 years. Like all of a sudden that happened. There's just, and then winning doesn't hurt. Jane Daniels doesn't hurt. Dan Quinn doesn't hurt. I think, his hiring didn't hit the way I think that they had hoped it would, but it took about 3 months and now 1 season to go, oh, they got it right with him too. So it's all smelling like roses right now. And hopefully it'll keep going that way. It's been a really incredible turnaround. I still believe that last season was the greatest or one of the greatest turnarounds in NFL history. To go from 4-13 to 12-5, to not have had that record since 1991, to do it with almost a completely new overhauled roster top to bottom with a new head coach and a new GM and a rookie quarterback. Name another team that ever did that. I remember going through the season and I was like talking to London because he played on the Greatest Show on Turf teams. And I'm like, the year you guys won the Super Bowl, the year before you were like 5-11 or something like that. And nobody thought anything of you. And Kurt Warner wasn't the quarterback yet, like all of that type of stuff. So it was the only one that came to mind to me that was like a turnaround like this. But if you put into account all of the bad karma in and around this team for all of those years, I don't think there's really anything like this. And this is just adding to it. That press conference was historic and almost surreal a year ago. I never thought they were going to get the RFK site back. I never thought that anybody would be able to get it back because the federal government had stood in the way of it the whole time. And all of a sudden they're getting out of the way. And then all of a sudden the mayor wants it. All of a sudden the commissioner's standing there going, it's important to us to have this here. A week later, the draft is showing up here because of all these things are happening. And the karma in and around the team, I mean, it couldn't be better based on what they were about last year, what they became, how they won, and what this quarterback is. I mean, there is no turnaround in professional sports, honestly, that feels like the way this has gone the last couple of years.
No, there's not. I mean, there's also not even a comparison because I don't think we've ever seen a franchise as historically popular be torn down, in 20 years, essentially. Yeah. I mean, it was a slow erosion, but then when it really started to get bad, I would say 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, like that was where it was. I think there was some doubt, like whether we were ever going to get back to this point. Honestly,
that's when the crowd started disappearing.
Yep. Like
then the ticket sales started going to the brokers, and all the other teams were able to buy the tickets, or were being overrun. That's when that all started happening.
I would say that too, though. There were certain opponents where the stadium was empty. Like that was actually the big sign where I went, this is way bad. Because it's one thing if you're not selling to opposing teams, it's to your own fans, but then when you're not selling to the opposing team's fans,
that's right.
That was really, really rough. I still say this every day they get away from the last ownership too. People are putting that era behind them. Like, This is a whole new look, a whole new quarterback, whole new ownership group. Also, I've said this before too, Josh Harris deserves a lot of credit for doing all of these things. The last owner didn't. Like, there were never stadium upgrades. He never made an effort to, have relationships trying to get the RFK site. He just wanted to have it, but he didn't know how to go about doing that. Right away, literally, Josh Harris has figured out how to do all of that. I mean, you think about Dan Snyder, and we talked about it for however many weeks of having the 3 sites in Virginia a couple years ago, right? Where they had their pick of it was Dumfries, Dulles, and I forget where the third site was, like Woodbridge. I think it was Woodbridge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And remember, after like a month, everyone just said, well, we don't want you working with Dan Snyder. And then it just blew up in front of their faces. Like those were the types of things that were happening. And now it's the complete opposite. Everyone wants to work with this ownership group. It couldn't be more of a 180.
No, it's really been an incredible turnaround. And I hope everybody's right. We're picking 32nd in 2027. That would be amazing. In the meantime, I'm sure you saw this. There were clips from the Eagles war room where you see Howie Roseman make a call to Adam Peters. You don't hear Adam Peters on the other line. It's a very short phone call. Washington was picking 29. The Eagles obviously were picking 32. The Eagles wanted Jahad Campbell, who they ended up getting anyway. They were reasonably worried that Washington would take him because edge rusher, linebacker, stand-up rusher, that is a clear need. So I think they wanted to test the waters here, find out what was on the other side. I think they probably felt like once it got to Buffalo, they were good. Buffalo was screaming they were going to take a corner the whole time. Anyway, so they called up Adam Peters, and you hear Howie Roseman say after a very short phone call that they weren't moving because Washington wanted to stay where they were, that Adam Peters wanted what he called an in-division tax, which I actually find very interesting, mainly because Adam Peters was asked Are you reluctant to trade in the division, which he clearly is not, because he did it a couple of times a year ago, specifically with Philadelphia? They ended up getting Cooper DeJean by moving up. Washington moved back and got Mike Sanders still. I'll call that a wash. Both teams ended up getting exactly really, really good players. But when you do this, there is a perception of there might be a winner and a loser. And you kind of don't want to be the loser in that when you trade to a team that you're chasing in your division, make them better. And in this case, I think it made them both better. They ended up getting starters out of the whole thing. But Adam Peters was asked about this before the draft. Are you reluctant at all to do this? And he said, no, not at all. And he said, we're just going to look out with, it's not that we want to do it, but we'll look out for what's in the best interest of us. And I found it really interesting that he said he wanted an in-division tax. It was almost like he was hearing what everyone had said to him about doing a deal like this. And if you do something that looks like it's quote unquote helping the Eagles, you better get some kind of pound of flesh out of it. And I can't speak for him that he was speaking that way, but I just found it so interesting that this was brought up before the draft. And then when the Eagles tried to move with him, he said, you're going to have to give me more. Otherwise, I don't want to do it.
I think what this one did go down to, though, was they really loved the player. That's how I kind of
100%. Also, though, Philadelphia, I don't think they could have thought in the same way that Philadelphia thought they might take Jahad Campbell. I don't think Washington thought they were taking Josh Connerly, considering who their line is. So they didn't think their guy was going to be taken at 29. They couldn't have thought that.
No, that's for sure. But you never know. And if you love your guy, you love your guy. Who cares at that point?
Well, the Chiefs at 31 did take Josh Simmons, so it's possible they would have taken Connerly over Simmons had they done this deal. That's possible.
Right. So I would say this, too. I think it was because they loved the player more this time around as well. I appreciated the reaction to the Eagles war room after that pick. I don't know if you watched the entirety of the clip, but yeah, exactly. Yeah. Easy transition there. I liked the reaction of them by just saying great pick. I was like, okay, that reassures me because I've said too, Howie keeps things simple. He takes the best players off the board, and sometimes he gets a little too much credit for that. But hey, he does it, and the roster's really, really good. I can't knock it. And so when you get the approval from him, I don't mind that either.
Yeah, when you talk about in-division trades right now, just the way – actually, I thought Dallas had a very nice draft, and I think in the past they've gotten a lot of nice drafted players. But it feels like with the way things are kind of wonky with them, that if you do a deal with them, people aren't at least perceptually concerned that you got taken by them. With the Giants, same thing. They may have done pretty well in the draft the last couple of years, but perceptually, people look at them and they go, I'm not really sure they know what they're doing. So you feel like you have this edge if you make a deal with them. Philadelphia is not that way. I think that's the scary part of dealing with them right now. It used to be, we used to have the guys like Bobby Beathard. You really shouldn't do a deal with someone like that because they seem to know what they're doing, and you don't want to be wrong. Even if you think you're right, there's a reason why they're doing it. You don't want to be wrong. I also saw him say that he liked Connerly, and I also that was nice validation to hear that. There was another clip that I saw from Philadelphia's war room where I guess they tried to move up further into the middle of the first round, and Atlanta had given up what they thought was way too much, I guess. And you hear Roseman go, well, now I know why they're not taking our deals, because look at what they're giving up to do something like this, which was kind of a shot at Atlanta, who 2 years in a row now did the weirdest thing that we can remember in the draft, signed Cousins, pick Penix anyway in the top 10. That may work out for them. And now here's a second time where you hear a front office going, I don't know what those guys are thinking. This isn't that kind of draft. Why you're giving up that much to do something like this. So I also agree with you. I liked that Howie liked what we did. It felt like validation because, frankly, as much as there are rivals, I respect what they've built there. It's hard not to respect what they've built. So if they say you're doing something right, I'll take the compliment and move on.
No, absolutely. And I would say this too. I think if you're Adam Peters, you do, while he says he's not hesitating to trade with them, you do trade in division. You do need to watch yourself with them because
100%.
you're gonna find yourself playing them in the playoffs again at some point. I don't know if it's gonna be this year or the year after, but you're gonna have to go through them, and that if you have that cross pollination more than one or two times, people are gonna start asking questions, and then especially if you lose too.
They've had a couple, and listen, the proof is they've had a couple prime deals with them. One was the one in the draft where they ended up with Sammer still. I got no complaints with that. they got DeJean. Ended up being a very, very good pick. Washington also traded them Jahan Dotson. I don't think anybody's complaining about that deal right now. That looks like a good deal in favor of Washington at this point. So I trust our guy. But he's the one GM, and especially because they're in the division, because they're the Super Bowl champs, because they got the roster that they do. You just don't want to do anything that makes them better. That's all. You don't. Unless it's going to make you better for certain. You don't want to mess with it. All right, let me take a quick break. Bram Watch the Choice, be at 6:30 Sports Capital. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season, we're through the first month. It is in full swing. We're heading into the home stretch here for the NBA and the NHL playoffs as they have moved into their semifinal rounds. And BetOnline has more ways to stay in on all of the action. Latest odds, news, scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. With the largest selection of odds on everything from MLB, NHL, UFC, BetOnline remains the number one online source for all your sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the BetOnline Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, welcome back. You're going to love this, Callow. You are going to love this. You got to see this on YouTube if you want to see it. So if you're listening to the radio or you are listening to the podcast, check out the YouTube page, Ampire Media. We don't post every day up there, but most days when Callow and I do this, we post the show up on YouTube, and you can check this out. I told you all last week I went to Greenville, South Carolina, which I've never been to that part of the country. It's beautiful. It's about an hour from Asheville, hour and a half from Charlotte, up in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Really beautiful down there. Lovely downtown. I loved it. I had a really great time there. And this group had invited me down, and what they do mainly, I'll show you, is they refurbish helmets for teams, and I got an explanation of why that's extremely valuable. And I was talking to them about essentially a shared content and beyond deal with Ampire Media, because I think it's really cool what they do. I'd gotten introduced to them. And they said if I came down, they would make me an Ampire Media helmet and that I could have it to display. So here's what I got. It's like a full-on, full NFL helmet with the new Ampire logo and all the bells and whistles that go with it. I got a face shield that says Ampire Media on it. I know it's reflecting a little funny, might be hard to see. And then all of the little accoutrements that go on the helmet with Ampire Media on the back. They put a DC flag on the back. The stripe they made custom, which has got a bunch of burgundy and gold colors, but with radio transmitter type of stuff to kind of show it off. The new logo that we did is an old school microphone, because I like to harken back to old school broadcasting, and in the middle of it is a Washington monument to kind of symbolize the Washington DC part of it. So what do you think, Callow? What do you think of our new helmet?
I was gonna say it does remind me of the alternate black with some tossed on DC stuff. I love it. I love the chrome face mask. I wish that was more of a thing in the NFL. I know you can't do it for safety reasons, mainly just for concussions and stuff like that. But I think that's pretty sick. Have you tried it on? Have you
I haven't put it on my head. No, I haven't put it on my head. But they told me, they're like, this thing retails for $1,000. They gave me the good helmet, the whole thing. They didn't give me the crappy helmet. They did the whole thing for me. This thing's awesome. What they started doing, I thought was really cool. And they're going to give me the interview I did with them. We made the helmet together. They put it together for me and kind of showed me what they do. What it started for them was the face masks themselves. They get beat up in games, right?
Yep.
As you might imagine. And then, the NFL, NCAA, whatever, they want their look to look right. So what used to happen was the face mask would just get taken off the helmet and essentially thrown away. And then they would go buy these new face masks that get dipped in these powders so they have the sleek look to whatever color that they want. But the companies that were sending them the face masks were charging them this kind of extraordinary amount of money. So they were like, if you just send us your face masks, we'll refurbish them, redip them, send them back to you at a cut rate. And all these teams signed up to do it with them, which then turned into not just that business for them, but customization. So they've become a big collectible group, obviously, because they have all these deals with all these schools and everybody. And then they can customize this stuff. So, someone's getting married, they're big football fans. Guess what? Dan and Pearl can have their own helmet. They can go in the middle of their table and they can do all that stuff. But I thought it was really cool. and it's awesome, and it'll be, nicely displayed back here. And they told me if fans of the show or our other shows want mini helmet versions of this, I can get them. So if you all have the interest in something like that, then you have to pay for them. Sorry, because they're not cheap, but I can have minis made because they've already made this for me, and I can send them to you signed. So we can do stuff like that if you want to. We haven't decided. I'm not big on asking for money from people. So, but if I'm going to buy these and send them to you, I'm happy to do it. You just have to pay for them. So that's all.
I would say if you're gonna, you would probably need to do some crowdsourcing. Like I would change the back. You know how the back says, I think it says Ampire on the back, Ampire Media. I think you need to change that to Hey Babies if you're gonna do a listener version. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay.
I'm big on gear, but I think that needs to be put somewhere on the helmet if fans are going to buy it. But you would need the demand for that. So I'm not going to assume that, but I think that needs to make it onto the helmet somewhere. So I'll just say that.
Anyway, I thought it was pretty cool. And then if you find us on YouTube, you'll see probably this week at some point, whenever they cut the interview, I did an interview with them where we put this thing together, and he showed me basically how they build custom helmets. And then obviously I talked about the Commanders with him. I thought it was really fun, really cool. And I want to thank them for doing this because it was really awesome. And it's going to be, prominently displayed in the background now in perpetuity because I thought it was awesome that they made this. And if you're interested in doing a customized helmet, they're happy to do that for you. So just call them up. You can find them. Green Gridiron is where you can find them. Okay. All right. Let me get back to other stuff. I saw this story. I thought this was really interesting from the NFL. And that's Abdul Carter apparently called Lawrence Taylor and asked him to wear 56, right? He's obviously number 3 overall pick. Might be the best pick of the draft, honestly. It might be, in my opinion, might be him, maybe Travis Hunter to the same degree, but he feels like him, Ashton Genty. They feel like the true sure things of all of this. The rest, everybody else, we'll see. Everybody's a we'll see, it feels like, out of this draft, but he feels differently. So he goes to New York and he goes, okay, I want the number of the greatest defensive player in the franchise's history, okay? And some might argue maybe the most dominant and freaky, scary defensive player ever. Okay.
You could argue he's the best linebacker of all time.
Ever. You could argue, he was the scariest defensive player in the history of the NFL.
Yes.
You could easily argue something like that. So Lawrence Taylor just is like, no. He just flatly said, no, we're not doing that. So he wore 11 at Penn State. So he calls Phil Simms. And Phil Simms, Super Bowl winning quarterback for the Giants, obviously legend of broadcasting in all the years afterwards, numbers retired, calls him. I guess Phil Simms was kind of like, okay, why not? And his family actually vetoed it and said, you're not allowed to do this. So we did this a little bit with Haskins, right? Remember, he was calling around, wanted to wear number 7. Number 7, Washington hadn't started retiring anybody's numbers. Only Sammy Baugh at that point had been retired, but there were ones that we just didn't give out. Rigo's number, 7, 81, 28. There were just some numbers we didn't give out to anybody. That's changing now with the retirement part of the whole thing. But remember, Theismann reluctantly was like, fine. Remember, he was like, all right. He wasn't totally on board with it. He was just kind of like, fine. And Theismann turned out to be right with the way that Haskins had played, and then ultimately, was released. And, obviously all the terrible stuff that happened after that is the terrible stuff that happened after that has nothing to do with this conversation. But he was right not to turn over what is a legendary number. So Abdul Carter, listen, man, we all got big hopes for you, but you walk in the door and go, I'm Lawrence Taylor. Might want to slow your roll a little bit there.
I had a big rant on this on my show on Thursday or Friday once this came out a little bit. And I've ultimately landed on this, in that, what do retired numbers mean anymore if guys that haven't played a snap yet are coming in and asking for it? I don't really get this, actually. And why it's been a trend the last, I'd say 5, 6, 7 years of guys asking. By the way, Cam Ward did get number 1. in Tennessee.
He did. He asked Warren Moon for it. He did ask Warren Moon for it, and he got it. Yes.
And so, I am very much of the argument, what do retired numbers mean if we're starting to let them slip back into the rotation here, especially when it's franchises that I use the Yankees comparison. The Yankees have so many freaking retired numbers that eventually one day they might have to start rotating some of them back in. I don't know when or how that'll happen, but I've looked at it and all I thought was, do these not mean anything anymore? Or people just go, it's retired, but I still want to ask for it? I don't really understand. And to me, the Lawrence Taylor one was the one that tipped me, because it was like, no, that's arguably the greatest linebacker of all time. He's an icon, not just like a retired number. He's an icon of a defensive player.
Yes.
You want his number? No chance. I will say this, though, because when I looked it up and said, oh, Sims wears 11, maybe you make the argument of that's an offensive 11. This would be a defensive 11. It's a little bit different, but all in all, it is their call. And I kind of settled in on this. If you want that number eventually, I think that could be a conversation you have. Like,
I think you have to earn that number.
That's what I'm getting at. And I think for the NFL, this has actually been a long time coming for certain players. Obviously, it's not every player because not everybody's good. Look at the Haskins, situation that happened. But I said, this could be a marketing technique. Like, let's say Carter goes and wears number, I don't know, 59. I'm just throwing a number out there. I don't know the roster that great, but let's just say he wears that number. And then in 5 years, when his rookie contract is up, and let's say everything's gone great, he's made some all pros. Let's say the rookie contract is over with, and they're going to give him this huge extension. I think then if you're him, you could go to Sims or Taylor and go, I want to switch my number. Let's do that. And then at that point, as the NFL and the Giants, you can do this like marketing thing of, hey, he's going to change his number. You can buy the old number, and then the new one is going to come out.
You've earned it. Yeah.
Come out. And then guess what happens too? You become synonymous with, all these Sims jerseys will now be put in the team store, or all these Lawrence Taylor jerseys will be put in the team store more prominently than they are right now. I think there's a way you could market this as kind of like a passing of the torch of the number, but it has to be earned. And that's what I've just basically settled it on. It has to be earned. You can't just ask for it right away.
There are two big time sports teams that do this. And one is the Brazilian national soccer team. When you wear 10 for them, that's a really big deal. Okay. Like, that's Pele. Like, that's a real, but through the years, icons of the team of the era wear 10. And it's a big deal that you get to wear 10 for them. The Cowboys have 88 as a number that is earned for great receivers. Michael Irvin wore it. Drew Pearson wore it before he did. Des Bryant wore it. And now CeeDee Lamb wears it. That's not a coincidence. And I actually kind of like that. So I am on the side of, if you earn the opportunity to wear that number because it's meaningful for your organization, then I think you earn it. So I'm with you on, if Abdul Carter earns wearing 56, I would hope that Lawrence Taylor and the Giants are open to it. But on day one, absolutely not. Like, you are not him until you are him. You are not him.
No, and I always thought it was kind of cool if you were a fan of these guys when they do change their number, that you have the old one. Like, in my closet somewhere, I have a 95 John Allen Redskins jersey. That was what he only wore for 1 year. And if you see one of those, you go, oh, you were ahead of the trend there. And then John switched to 93. Same thing. It's not as prominent, but I had to double take a lot last year. Number 5 was Tressway. There weren't a lot of 5 jerseys. Well, last year there were 1 billion 5 jerseys at every stadium that I went to. But when you saw number 5 Tressway, you went, that's a real one. You were a fan last year. Like, there's also a little bit of a fan aspect of this too that I like, that I think the NFL could lean in here a little bit as well. So I don't know. There's a way to do this, but doing it before you play the snap is not the way to go. I think that's just what I've settled it on.
Right. You earn it. Like, the person who gets number 10 for Brazil is the captain of the team who's earned the number.
Yes.
And then the expectations are up on you. They're like, look at the people who've worn this number before. You must live up to that. Well, and the pressure is inherent on it, but they've earned the spot to wear the thing in the first place.
And a lot of college teams do this. Like Virginia Tech, I love what they do. Frank Beamer wore number 25. One player every week gets 25. Their number switches, and it's every week. It's not just for the year. It's every week someone switches to 25. So, like, obviously, they're not going to do that in the NFL. I get that. but we've got ways to go about this. It is just not this way, though. And especially like you called up LT and he was like, no, hell no. And then you called Sims, like, come on. Like, I would have just stopped at the one, and now you had to dip into both. Come on, man. Come on.
All right, let me take a quick break. Bram Watch the Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. What a comeback last night. There was a 1 seed that nearly went out. They were down 2 goals with less than 2 minutes to go. Winnipeg scored twice, including a goal with under 2 seconds left to go to overtime. It got to a second overtime, and I was actually up and watching the winner. So I saw that. They hit the post about 10 seconds before it. Archer, by the way, looks like Winnipeg has the best crowd in hockey. So he's like, let's go there. Looks like it.
Oh, he doesn't want to go there.
I'm like, I'm gonna skip that trip. But anyway, what a comeback last night. And we're back in Chalkland, really, because of that. Go look at all the matchups that are here in the second round. This is actually very unusual that there's like not some kind of massive upset that's sitting in the playoffs at this point. It's very chalk this year in the NHL playoffs.
No, not only was it yesterday's Game 7, Saturday's Game 7 was incredible as well.
That was another crazy comeback. Yes.
Dallas ended up coming back. Mikko Rantanen, who got traded twice, but originally was traded from the Avalanche to the Hurricanes, then to the Hurricanes to Dallas because it wasn't clicking this year. He's the first player ever to eliminate his team with a hat trick in a Game 7. So that was all the drama for that one. And then last night, I mean, I literally, there were 2 minutes left and they pulled the goal and I said, well, that's it. And then I get on my phone like 45 minutes later and it was double overtime. So it's been a great NHL playoffs, but you're right. It has been chalk. These matchups have been a little bit closer, but ultimately the better team has prevailed.
These semifinal rounds on both sides are going to be incredible. Oilers, Golden Knights, both series in the East. I mean, this is going to be a haymaker here with us and the Canes. But Florida and Toronto, too, this is going to be outrageous. I mean, like, this is unusual. Typically, there is a massive upset along the way. And this is the round where someone kind of catches a break to get to the next round. That's not going to be the case this year. Obviously, like, the Caps aren't starting tonight. They're starting tomorrow night. So we'll spend a lot more time tomorrow talking about the series. But it's been a long time off for both of them. So that's the only thing I really want to touch on here. Do you think it's a big deal that neither one of them are going to have played for almost a week?
I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I think we'll see. I think it benefits the Caps a little bit more because the Caps will be at home, and I think they'll feed off that crowd a little bit more. I also think Alexei Protas, he did play Game 7, by the way. I said that he would play, and you were like knocking me on that, but he played but didn't look like himself in Game 5. So I think having some rest for him was probably big. Ovechkin resting is always something that I'm fine with. Same thing with Tom Wilson. The guys who are really physical, it's going to benefit them. I think it'll take 10 minutes for the Caps to get going, but it'll be the same thing for the Hurricanes. So it's going to be a feeling out in that first period tomorrow. But I'm not really concerned about the rest. I think it's going to benefit the Caps here. I think
we're in for a low scoring game tomorrow night. Like, both goaltenders have been playing really well. The time off, it feels like it's like when a baseball team gets through and has to wait, they always have to like kind of get back up to speed, get the juices flowing. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at like scoreless after 1-2-1 type of game, like either way tomorrow night. That's what kind of feels like to me to start the series. They kind of just get their juices flowing a little bit.
No, I'd agree. This one seems like it's going to be low scoring to start, but then I have no doubt it's going to be one or two of these games. All hell is going to break loose because there's history coming in with these two teams from the regular season too. One of these games is going to blow up, and I don't know if it's going to be in the Caps or the Hurricanes side of things. But I'm basically in it for a long series in this one, so I'm not going to get too up or too down tomorrow night.
Yeah, this is a 6 or 7 game series. It screams it. All right, we'll get a full preview tomorrow. Bram Watch the Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.